So this is just on a personal one. One of the very first scenes I ever saw as a young person in my developmental years of cinema was the scene in Bruce Almighty with Steve Carell, and he starts talking gibberish.
Yes.
Where he starts taking over that. And that has some of the best comedy editing I have ever seen. And I had this moment the other day where I was reflecting. I was like, that is still one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, I can talk to the man that did it. So I just wanted to ask very specific, if you have any memories of that kind of editing, that sort of getting that together, because that was a scene I always remember, and like, you know, as an adult and being able to kind of analyze it a bit more, a lot of the kind of genius of that is that when Jim Carrey starts moving his mouth one way, it matches perfectly with the sound that Steve Carell's doing. And was that something that like they wrote down the exact gibberish so it would match? Was it they were in the same room and they just kind of worked it out? Or was it something that you had to find in the edit to get that timing just right?
They did try, but Steve had improv'd so much, and then the shot with Jim in the control booth doing the controlling, he's separate. So they just kind of both were improvising at the same time or on the same day. It's not like we shot one side, looked at the film, and then had somebody else mimic what was done. No, that scene, probably one of the funniest in the movie, which was an interesting challenge editing, because it was so funny that the director, Tom Shadyac, had decided he felt the film was peaking too early. So how do we, here's Tom's challenge. He goes, think about this. How do we take this scene and move it later in the movie so the film doesn't peak so early? And that's one of those, drop that bomb on me Friday night, and then come in the cutting room Monday morning. So, Scott, what'd you come up with? But it worked out fine. We were able to just rearrange and restructure that section of the movie so that we could just take and move it. I mean, we're not moving it 20 minutes. That's just too much. But we were still able to move it several scenes later and restructure the area so that the movie would peak later. So that's one of the, going off on a tangent, that's a little something about that scene. What I remember quite vividly about that scene, as I was cutting in the cutting room, we were shooting that scene at Universal, and I get the phone call in the cutting room, Mr. Shadyac would like you on set, please. And I'm like, oh, geez, here we go. What'd they do? So I go down to the set, and they're shooting that scene. And so I'm sitting next to Tom, and we're, behind the monitors, and the whole set's in front of us and everything. And I'm watching it play out, and everybody is trying to stifle their laughs so they don't blow the take, because the whole crew behind the camera, everybody's laughing. And it's hilarious, the stuff that Steve's coming up with, stuff Jim's coming up with. And so Tom just said, I want you to just see what we're doing here, just to see, get some ideas on where the scene's going. So I'm sitting there for quite a while, and I'm watching it. And we finish Steve's coverage. And everybody's laughing and congratulating Steve on the brilliant improv. And Tom turns to me in the chair, and he goes, I don't know how you're going to cut that, but I know it's going to be great. I have no clue how that's going to cut together. So good luck. And I'm anxious to see what you come up with.
And how did you feel in that moment? Were you watching going, I have no idea how I'm going to edit this?
I didn't. I had no idea. But you're looking at it and you go, well, there's just, my first question was, there's so much great stuff. How am I going to get that incorporated in the scene so that actually tracks with the drama of what the scene's about? How is that going to happen? And then I, get Jim's coverage and see, and the Jim stuff is hilarious. And it's like, oh my God. So I got to meld these two together. And as you said, make it look like what Jim says is what comes out of Steve's mouth. And yeah, when you're given brilliant footage like that, then it's just on you as an editor to not screw it up.
Yeah, I
So,
can imagine that's a lot of pressure though as well, because you're like this. There is so much gold. Did you find it was something
oh
that
yeah,
you?
it's I'm always feeling the pressure. It's like, this has got to be gold from the outset, or I'm in trouble.
Well, I can definitely say from an audience perspective, it definitely worked because it is still something that it was a film I rewatched recently, but one it's always stuck in my head the way that that scene was done.
I'm very proud to say that when Tom saw the scene, he only thing he wanted to do was make it go a little longer because it's such a good laugh.
Mm.
And we added a little more at the end, but I'd say 98% of that scene is my first cut.
Oh wow, that's amazing because it is. And do you know what? The other thing I keep thinking about that scene, it is very dynamic. It's not he's just doing gibberish. He goes fast and slow and fast and slow,
Right.
and it's like, was that something that you had to find in the edit to kind of keep that?
Well, yeah, because you want it. Yes, you want to build it, so it needs to
Yeah,
build to a peak. It just can't start. It's like we talked about in terms of performance. You can't go to 100 and then hold that. That just isn't going to work. Nobody can. You just can't maintain that. Whether it's the tension in Jaws or laughing at Jim Carrey,
mm,
you can't hold it. It won't sustain for a long time. So you personally, I believe in just in each individual sequence, I want it to build.
mm,
So each scene is structured like a movie. It's got a beginning, middle, and end, and you need it to build to that third act. And
yeah,
even if you're looking at a 2.5 minute scene,
yeah,
and that's how I structured the thing. I needed it. I decided it needed. You start off, you set up the scenario, show our players, and then let the madness unfold. And yeah, and you want it to build to a peak, and that was one thing. When Tom saw it, it was great because Tom's just roaring in the cutting room. He's just loving it, and he's like, "Oh my God, this is great! I think we've got the footage to keep it going just a little bit longer."
mm,
And and yeah, it was there. So we found a way. And Tom's like, let's try this and this, and then let's say, okay, let's see if I can make this work here and get from where I was ending it to where I could continue it and still build it and hit the peak
yeah,
for the scene. And then that's what I've already mentioned at that point. Um, Once we previewed it, and it was fantastic. Tom's like, movie's peaking too early. We need to move the scene later in the movie. And it's like, wait, whoa, what? Restructure. Okay, here we go.
yeah,
Let's see if we can do it. And we did it. We were able to do it. And then by the time it was it was just, it's so much fun. Jim was shooting back in New York or New Jersey. I think he was Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. So we took the movie back to show him. So we screened it in, I think it was in New Jersey. We were in New York and then went to the theater. So Jim, we sneaked Jim into the theater in the back of the theater there, and it plays like a dream. It's just great. Jim's just loving it because the audience is just losing it. But and he has notes about certain things and can we do this or that, whatever. And then that scene with the Steve Carell, um, he Jim just turned to Tom and said, "Don't touch a frame. That's
mm.
done. It's done."
It works. It's even like I remember. It's so funny because I've only seen that film a couple of times, but it's even like the way Jim Carrey like leans against the wall with his hand like that. And he's trying to hide it, but he's still doing them. And it's like it's those little
Yeah,
things that like accumulate into that scene being so.
yeah.
That's good. That's such a good story. Thank you so much, Scott. That is literally. That's the this was when I dreamed of interviewing. It was like, oh, we might be able to interview Scott Hill. I'm like, what? That was the kind of thing. I kind of, it was almost like when I was writing down these questions, I was like, okay, if I,
Well, we can bring it
this
back
is,
and make it relevant to your what we're doing here, and say yes. Then the whole thing was cut on Lightworks.
was
And
there any particular advantage, I suppose, of editing, especially with something like Lightworks? Was there anything that you found where you're like, thank God I'm editing this on Lightworks and not blank? You don't have to say what it is. Or
I
thank,
usually I usually feel that way on every movie, but that I'm able to cut. And I will admit, not every movie I'm able to use Lightworks. So that's an issue that I'm still dealing with. But especially when I get back to it, it's like, oh, this is so nice. Mostly for me, it's in terms of what tool I use, it's what I can work with faster. So I'm always very cognizant of the attention of the director sitting behind me or some to sit next to me. I don't want to waste their time. So me trying to fumble through, trying to open up trims and cuts and different, and yeah, no, I want to do it faster, especially when the director gets into a train of thought about how a scene should be playing. I want to be able to cut it quickly and put it together while he's still even thinking about it. I had an example. I cut a movie called Dance Flick at Paramount, and Damien Dante Wayans directed it, and then he had his uncle, Keenan Ivory Wayans, came in to the cutting room after the first week of post and say, "Oh, my uncle's coming in to help out." Okay, here we go. And so I'm cutting with Damien and Keenan has an idea for a scene, and he's trying to explain it to me. It's like, well, I need it to go this and this and this. And so I'm like going with him as he's going. So by the time he finished his sentence about how he thought a certain section should be structured and should play, I'm like, oh, you mean like this? And I just hit play. And it was done. I had it cut by the time he finished his sentence. And he's like, that's exactly what I was talking about. It's like, well, then we were on the same page. So that's good. That's a good thing.
Is that something, is it because you use the console, don't you, for Lightworks?
Yes, I do. I use the console.
That's brilliant. That something you find it's just, you can move way faster than on other softwares?
Yes, I can work much faster. Just for me, some people are like, yeah, I can move just as fast as with a keyboard and mouse. Okay, fine. To each their own. To me, there are aspects of the console that the accuracy of even just shuttling through the footage to the frame, I can get it to a point to where it's playing the equivalent of perfs, because I can run a frame and I can, all of a sudden the sound will kick in halfway through, so I know I'm like halfway in the frame. I can hear the audio hit, so I know where, like almost to the perf of where the audio is starting, to then flying through it. There's so many advantages. By the time I'm showing a director my cut, I'm working with a lot of tracks. I try to minimize the video layers. So if I'm down to, I try to keep it around 3 plus effects tracks. So I may be working with, by the time I've got all that put together, I may have 6 video layers. But at that point, I'm also probably working with, like I said, I try to keep it minimized so I can move faster, but I'm usually working with 20 to 25, 24. Usually I try to keep it even numbers. The 24 audio tracks, say, 6 video layers. One of the advantages of the console is that I can open, say I want to make a change with the director, and here I have 24 audio, 6 video tracks. There's a single button. I can open all my tracks at the same time. Single button hit on the console. And it's not just cuts all my tracks at one point so I can move them. It's smart editing. It opens every track at a cut point. It doesn't like cut a sound effect or a piece of music at that point where the playhead's sitting. It knows where the end of each of those tracks are. So when it opens all those tracks up, it opens them up intelligently at the cut points. So then, and with a single thing, I'm open. Now I can rock and roll and adjust the edit at that point, and all my tracks can stay in sync, and I'm not chopping them all up, and I have to go back and get the false cuts out, it's a lot faster.
Do you find that it takes longer to edit a comedy when you have almost more options to deliver the joke, or it's a lot more delicate maybe? Would you find it's more delicate or more complicated to deliver a comedic scene versus a dramatic one?
in any case, it's about performance.
Mm.
So it doesn't matter, comedy or drama. It's about the performance. With comedy, setting up the joke is really important because a
Mm.
punchline with no setup is not funny.
Yeah.
So in that regard, you've got to work on that setup, because if your setup is even tainted by being on the wrong person for the setup, then the audience, may not land 100% that setup.
Mm.
So when the punchline comes, it may not be quite as funny because the whole audience didn't grasp that setup to begin with. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty important.
So do you ever find this is a very personal, this is a very question from me. Do you ever find when you're editing, like with multiple tracks, that you end up accidentally making a staircase of just
Oh,
like
I've
you end up
seen that a
editing a
lot.
scene? The amount of times I've done, and then I have to then go back and I'm like, come on, reduce it down, reduce it down. But do you ever find, is it you, or maybe you see in other editors where like those habits kind of happen, and then you have to kind of reduce it
I
down?
see it some like that. I've seen some editors. I mean, everybody works in a different manner, and whether their timelines look like the most advanced game of Tetris you've ever seen in your
Mm.
life. And everybody works in their own manner. I like to be very disciplined with my audio tracks, just to make it makes life easier for organizational purposes. It also makes my assistant's life easier when
Mm.
it comes time to turn over. But I'll restrict, like, production track to the first four. 5 through 15 will be, or 5 through 16, whatever, will be sound effects, and then 17 through 20 or 17 through 24 will be music. So I try to keep somewhat organized.
Oh no, fantastic. So following that, are there any other disciplines that you give yourself to kind of make life easier for, for whoever, for your assistants, for the directors, for the producers? Are there any other good habits you could instill upon us mortal editors to kind of help us better in the long run?
That's a good question. I don't know. For me, a well-run editorial is an extremely organized editorial. Uh, Total chaos in editorial, for me, doesn't really work, because I started in film and working with Don Zimmerman on features with film, and you had to be able to say, if we have 1,000,000 feet of film, I have to be able at a moment's notice to find one frame. If Don would turn to me and go, I need this frame, you have to be organized enough to know exactly how to get it as fast as possible. So that kind of organization really helps for me in the cutting room, so that everybody knows where everything is. Now, in a digital world, you're talking about organizing dailies, bins. This is so assistants can deal with things on a daily basis, but then scene bins and how your bins are organized. I mean, it sounds like the simple basics, but it's just keeping things organized and not just randomly, oh, I just got all this stuff thrown in a bin. It's like, all right, so you're going to spend a good chunk of your time just trying to find what you're looking for, as opposed to cutting, or as opposed to recutting a scene with the director. Not a good idea. That's not good.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That was something that I always found, and I think especially with footage, because like it's not like it's just a text document that you can search.
Yeah.
With AI technology coming to some point, I'm sure that'll happen. But actually, where's that performance of this actor doing the wink where it's extra funny? How are you going to find that? Do you mark a lot of clips? Do you have a lot of like? Do you have like, you have your dailies bins and then your scene bins, and then do you also have like favorite bins or use this take? Or is it
Uh,
very much
uh, Not per se, because that to me starts getting messy. If I'll stay in all the footage for a scene in a bin, or multiple bins, depending on how much footage there is. If there's a lot, you have 100 takes, odds are good you're just not going to fit in one bin. My monitors are large, but they're not large enough to fit an entire scene that large, or a very large, complex scene. Yeah, you're not going to get it all in bins. So it could be 2, 3, 4 bins of footage. But yeah, within that bin, I'll either have alternate versions of a cut. I'll just kind of tuck them away in the bin for myself. It's like, oh, because I'll do that a lot, is I'll take and, oh, that scene cuts. Oh, that's fine. There's another way to do this scene. And instead of waiting for the director to show up and we discuss it, I'll just cut it. So I could have 2, 3 versions of a scene or a section of a scene or whatever tucked away. So it's like, oh, how did that play? Yeah, that's okay. Oh yeah, well, how about this? And play, click it and play. Well, that's an interesting approach. And then there's this one. And the directors I've worked with, they've told me that's one of the things they appreciate is I'll do alt. I'll do, there's no one single way to cut something. So if there's an alternate way, which might be a better way, I'll just try it, when I'm cutting dailies.